Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, and I also manage the Aviation Safety Program at the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health here in Anchorage. Thanks to Alaska Public Media for having us, and thanks to our viewers for watching. This evening, we are happy to have as our guest Samantha Case. Sam is a student at the University of Alaska in Anchorage, and she's working on her master's degree in public health. And she also works at the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health in the Commercial Fishing Safety Program. In full disclosure, she's also my coworker. Welcome to Hangar Flying, Sam.
Thank you.
Now, you just successfully defended your thesis. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Can you tell us about the topic that you chose for your study?
Yes. So I was really interested in looking at non-fatal injuries in aviation. So this is something that really hasn't been studied before in Alaska. There's some limited literature out there, but we don't really know too much about the types of injuries that are seen. So that was something I was very interested in, and that's what my study was.
So where did you get your information for the study, and what type of data did you use?
So all the data came from the Alaska Trauma Registry, and that's this really robust database that collects information from all the acute care hospitals in the state since 1991. And it's anyone who is affected by a traumatic injury like a fracture or dislocation, poisoning even, their clinical data are put into this database.
And what type of workers did you look at?
I looked at any aviation worker. So that's pilots and flight attendants, ground crew, but also avionics technicians and dispatchers, really anybody who is involved in the safe departure of a flight.
Good. What cases or types of injured workers did you find? How many?
Yeah, so it was focused between 2000 and 2013, and in that time period, 117 cases of non-fatal injuries were identified.
Wow. Can you tell us about the workers that were injured? What about their demographics?
Yeah, absolutely. So overwhelmingly, most were male at 89% and white at 85%. And age really ranged from 20 to 76 years with a median of 42 years of age.
Wow. I guess that's not surprising that most cases involve men, but that is a pretty high number for the highest aged person.
Yes.
So that's a little bit surprising. So I imagine that the type of injuries were very different. So how did you go about this study? How did you divide up the injuries or look at different cases?
Yeah, so they were really divided up between, if the injuries were caused from a crash or not. So that's how they were divided.
Okay, and let's start with crashes then. What did you find with those injuries?
So there were 28 crash-related injuries, and not surprisingly, they were mostly pilots who were injured. About 2/3 suffered fractures when we look at injury types from the crashes. And what was surprising to me was that about 1/3 suffered traumatic brain injury from the crashes.
Wow, that's pretty significant. I will be very interested in talking to you in a little bit about what we can do to prevent that, because traumatic brain injuries can be lifelong problems.
Absolutely.
With some serious long-term effects. So with the non-crash related injuries, what did you see there?
So the remaining 89 cases were not related to a crash, and these were caused by a variety of things. What really stood out to me was that over half were from falls, and when we look at falls a little more in depth, a lot of them were falls from the aircraft, such as mechanics working on the wing, or slips on ice. And we saw, mechanics, pilots, and baggage and cargo handlers really had the highest number of injuries when looking at occupational groups.
Oh, wow. So your study included all kinds of workers and looked at falls with, say, flight attendants that were working on an airplane that may have experienced turbulence.
Yes.
So you included that as well?
Yes.
And the overexertions, I imagine, would be a lot of cargo and baggage handlers?
Yes. The overexertion was the second leading cause of injury, but it only counted for 11 of the 89 injuries that we had. And yeah, overexertion was from lifting, pulling, pushing, throwing, mostly baggage and cargo. And that really affected all occupational groups because, as we know, in Alaska, in small operations, they kind of share duties.
Exactly. Well, Sam, we're running out of time and we're going to have to end our conversation here, but we will look forward to having you back on our next program and hearing about some prevention efforts that we might be able to look forward to in the future when we come back to hangar flying.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your support. Until next time, fly safely.